what significant life decisions did people make as a result of
Thank you.
these big changes?
So again, let me start with me. Sorry, audience and the interviews here.
That's all right.
For me, I had to give up an office space where I was working for 19 years.
Wow.
And to then go from that to work from home, which was not my norm. And it was a big decision not to go back there. However, the same friend who said I was eating all the chicken said to me, well, why don't you look for another office space? And so I ended up finding another office space because I had to get out of the house. I went 1 day a week. I had to leave the house and see my clients in person when the whole vaccine and booster stuff came into the picture. And the office space was half the price. So if it wasn't for COVID, I wouldn't have had this experience. And it was also a way that I had to stretch outside my comfort zone. And so I made the decision that, okay, I'll have the office once a week, but I'm not going to be so heavily driven to have a full-time office. Plus, my clients really, 95% of my clients love the video option.
Yeah, I was going to
It
ask.
works for them. They're not running to their appointment during lunch. They're sitting at their desk, their living room, some of them in the park. I mean, it's changed the game.
Yeah, nice.
Well, it seemed like from what you said, COVID has created opportunities for people to grow. I mean, you mentioned yourself. I know for me, COVID has actually, when COVID hit, I just started putting all my energy into my house. I figured I'm going to be home, so let me see what I can do to beautify my house. And before I knew it, the whole house has been totally renovated almost in 2 years. So COVID has created opportunities. Have you guys seen any opportunities where or feel that COVID has created opportunities for you or people that you've been around?
Bosh, you can start that.
Yeah. Well, again, that whole notion of suddenly having the world shrink because you did have this video option to begin to explore opportunities and options. That has been super big. The whole notion of people using TikTok and social media to create opportunities for themselves has been really, really huge. There's been a huge shift in people doing way more electronic things to make a living. And that's all because of COVID.
Yeah, you just made me remember one of my clients who is an environmentalist. And a lot of people are not really, talking about the environmental problems that we're having to the degree that they are. And one way that he was able to add to his work, because he's also an attorney, so that's a whole different career that he's in. But as an environmentalist and actually pursuing his PhD, he started a TikTok channel, and in that environment, he discussed climate change issues. So he didn't have the platforms that were being presented to him before COVID, but this was another way for him to get the word out, and a lot of responses. A lot of folks that really, their consciousness was raised.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Well,
Right.
I have to admit, he said was birthed out of COVID. Okay. So here we are tonight on this platform, and it allowed us to have the time to create and to bring the show to you guys every day, even for a year. Happy anniversary, guys.
Yes,
It has definitely created some opportunities that I could go on and on and on about. And I've even said to people, yes, COVID, it was a bad thing, but it made me be a better person. It made me become a better person in so many different ways. So it gave me an opportunity for me to grow personally. So I have to I give that to COVID as well.
I have to agree with you on that. It was a stimulus, right? It was a situation that we got to do what we could do with it. you know, good, bad, or indifferent. I have a question because, you know, as we've been talking about doing this show, and I've been talking with people that I know, people have been talking about some of the fears that they have going back into the world now that restrictions are being lifted. Can you talk about some of the things that people are talking to you about?
That's a good question. I feel like I'm the one that has that issue. My clients are not really, you know, many of the clients I work with, their work life pivoted. You know, they worked from home. They were just as productive as when they were going into the office. So, and you know, going back, there's these hybrid models. You know, 1 week in or 1 day in, the rest of the week out. That's working for people. So in terms of my experience, my practice, which may not represent the broader picture, but most were pretty not comfortable, but okay with the change. And then you have like a couple of my clients are teachers, and especially with young kids. With young kids, you really have to be physically there to reassure them, to show them, you know, whatever they're doing. And that was very challenging when COVID was as more active as it is now. But going back, it was also still problematic because kids were wearing masks. They didn't want to wear masks. And so it became a very tense situation to be back. But it was not the norm for all my clients. It was actually a positive thing. And if I could just add one thing just to go back to another part of our conversation, one of my neighbors, she loved the idea to work from home. She couldn't stand being around people, and she loved her work even more being home. And then there was another client has a 14, 15-year-old son who was really not doing great in school, like very, very, very smart young man, was pulling like C's, maybe sometimes D's. When COVID hit, I tell you, his grades went from B to A because he didn't have the distractions. He wasn't trying to be the cool kid. He wasn't trying to follow his peers. And so all of a sudden you had this kid who's, you know, he's very smart, very intelligent, very articulate, all those things. But then to begin to see actual academic work that was very difficult to expose, for lack of a better word, COVID exposed it.
Right.
So those are some other, now those are things that I definitely experienced in my practice.
Yeah, it did a shakeup, and you know, it was sort of a necessary. It was sort of a necessary thing in the evolution of our species.
Now,